You have got to make sure you're not making these 5 huge endgame mistakes in Once Human that are going to cost you a ton of time, a ton of progress, and a ton of power for your character. This video is about to be action-packed with every bit of information you could possibly need for the endgame to make sure you're soaring through it with flying colors. Before we start, drop a like on the video, and a lot of you aren't subscribed. If you've enjoyed my Once Human content, please subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Let's go. Really quick, I want to stop and thank today's sponsor of this video, BootDev. Me being someone who actually works full-time in IT, I've used platforms like BootDev to get to where I am today. BootDev is a programming platform that gamifies coding and teaches you from the ground up all of the basics to even advanced coding techniques that allows you to learn languages like Python and Go. Programmers have an amazing earning potential, with the median being $100,000 in the US. What makes BootDev's platform extremely fun is the fact that they gamify a lot of these challenges and programming lessons to essentially have you earn XP, levels, complete quests and missions, and make it a fun and competitive experience, but still allow you to learn at your own pace. The platform is designed to have you write a ton of code because that's the only real way you efficiently learn to program. Now, what's cool about BootDev is you can watch and read all of the content completely for free on their site. They have a full free tier version. The paid tier version gets you access to the interactive and sort of gamified content, but you can actually get a free demo of every course on the site and its interactive features to see if you actually really truly like it before you buy it. And they also offer a free 30-day no question money back guarantee. If you click the link in my description using code CreativeGamingYT, you can get 25% off your first payment at BootDev, and that's 25% off of your first month or your yearly subscription, whichever one you decide to go with. Seriously, from someone who's worked in IT for 6+ years, get yourself a useful skill like this. You should try and learn programming and really up your earning potential, and you'll be thanking yourself later for it. Check that link in the description, and let's get back to the video. So one of the other good ways to get acid, but something that you should be not avoiding and actually doing consistently, there are these production facilities that you can actually defend for 4 or 3.5 minutes. And once you do them, you can see you get a bunch of different rewards from different ones. You get Stardust Source, you get Acid, you even get level 3 Cortexes, which is why you should be farming these so you can max out the Starchrom and all of the other in-game materials that you're getting. Because this is going to be one of the big ways you consistently, again, get those Cortexes and other in-game materials that you need. It's an in-game activity that a lot of people skip over and don't do. So if we're doing this pollution point here, you can see if we use these Blackfell refinery permits, which you get a lot of through just playing the game, you just have to fight certain amounts of enemies, and you can actually output and preview the chance of obtaining certain deviants, certain cores that you can get to max out your Starchrom, and Acid as well. These can be extremely overpowered for rewards. So if you click F to start your defense, keep in mind you may want to add some defensive items here, so that way it can help you a little bit with the defensive portion. But then once you're ready, all you have to do is activate it to start to trigger the battle. Now, what you see as we're done, we've completed this purification, and we are able to now get all of the rewards. So we can claim we got a deviant here, the party monkey. We got 3 Cortex level 3s. We got 80 acid completely for free in like 5 minutes. And we got some Stardust Source as well. Super easy. We just claim that. And then with all the enemies we defeated, we can then walk around and pick up all of the acid from them as well, meaning we can get like 200 acid per run for every 4.5 minutes that we do these if you have enough permits, which is super easy to do. You can see there's one right here at the refinery pollution point at a recommended level of 23, although you get enemies compared to what level you are. And there's also one up here that I like to use right outside of Blackfell in the oil fields. There's a couple of these scattered across the map, so make sure you're doing these to get these good rewards. Now, the next thing you want to focus on is maximizing your weapon damage. Now, there's a couple ways to do this outside of just things like ammo that you really want to actually pay attention to, and you can do these the wrong way. So obviously for our ammo, unless we're fighting an extreme boss, we want to save our acid and our tungsten ingots for upgrades to our weapons. So making things like AP ammo, again, is a complete waste of time unless you're struggling with some sort of fight or boss that you maybe kind of need it for. For the most part, that won't be the case, so make sure you're making just regular steel ammo and not, again, making tungsten ammo, again, unless you absolutely need it because you're using a lot of tungsten ingots that way. The first thing you should focus on is maxing out your blueprints for weapons that you might need. If we look at this, the primary damage number that you have on your weapon will exponentially increase the more powerful the weapon is. So if it's 260 damage versus 237, it's going to be doing a lot more damage overall. So it's currently 237 damage because it is a 1-star weapon. Now we can again actually upgrade the blueprint itself. So if we were to upgrade this blueprint, it would take it from 236 to 250 damage. So again, if we hold this to enhance, that means we have upgraded the weapon successfully, which again gives us much better stats. Now if we upgrade it again, we go to 263. And once you get enough blueprint fragments, this is actually not incredibly difficult to do. Again, the higher you can get this blueprint, the higher overall exponentially your weapon is going to be in terms of how powerful it is. At that point, you'll then need to recraft the weapon and upgrade it from there. Now, the great thing about this is even though you have a weapon like this, where it might be calibrated quite a lot already, it may have cost you some energy link and some other materials. But if you look here, the regular materials like this will actually be refunded once you salvage this item at a pretty high rate. So you can see the blue little beads, the platinum crystals, not that big a deal. The tungsten ingots we want, that's a big deal. Those are going to be refunded at 100% because they are a normal material. And again, the legendary materials like Stardust actually still refund at 50%. So if you go up to blueprint upgrades, you should recycle this, take the hit on some of the Stardust and energy link, and then potentially re-level this thing up because it's going to be a much more powerful weapon. And as you can see again through the disassembly bench, again, if we were to just unequip our scar and then come over here to the disassembly bench and then select it right here, you can see we're still going to get almost all of the materials for the most part that we used to upgrade it this far, meaning we don't really take that much of a hit. And then after you worry about upgrading your blueprints, the things that make your weapon the most powerful are things like weapon calibration. So as soon as you start hitting the end game and get a powerful end game weapon, you want to do this to at least probably like level 4 or 5 to start because it gives you a lot more damage. This took this weapon from like 250 damage or some sort of mid 200 damage number all the way up to 300 and something damage. It gives you a lot more power. So you need to make sure you're calibrating your weapons consistently. And again, keeping your Stardust source as needed for this kind of thing. On top of calibrating, as you break down other weapons that you no longer need in the disassembly bench, those weapons will give you things like these calibration blueprints for other weapons. So currently for the Scar, you can see we have our accuracy +12 and stability +12 and some of these other benefits down here. Once we hit those calibration levels, these will actually unlock and give us these bonuses. And if you look at some of these other ones, you can find legendary calibration blueprints as well, which are extremely amazing. Some of these give us some serious power upgrades. Again, just as an example, this one gives us crit damage and elemental damage. This gives us similar stats, but some other blueprints will give you much bigger upgrades in terms of the amount of abilities or attributes that the weapon can hold. Again, you should be doing the same thing for your armor as well. As you can see here, we get a huge HP increase. This was at once like 500 HP. We've basically doubled it on this piece of gear, meaning we're way more tanky, way more powerful by calibrating all of our armor as well, which is actually pretty cheap to do. Now, next I want to talk about your mimetics and your specializations. So there's actually a cool trick you can use here. Just to give an example here, if we look at our logistics tab, you can see we have vending machine here and we don't have that skill unlocked. But however, when we come down here, we actually have our vending machine, meaning we can spend those mimetic points on something completely different. And the same goes for things like brewing barrels. If we were to reset like we just did this brewing barrel mimetic, we essentially get our ciphers back. And then we have still our brewing barrels over here with no need to really make any more right now. So we can use those mimetic points again on something completely different. This lets you save some mimetic points to use them for things that you actually need in case you have any that are like that. The same can go for things like solar panels or generators. Once you've built as many as you can build, you can reallocate those points to other things that you might need, like fertilizer or something else, right? Something else that might be useful in the moment. Keep in mind, you will lose the energy link from it. So it will cost you energy link, but there's a ton of great ways to get energy link extremely quickly. One other thing is specializations. So that same idea works with specializations. Now, obviously these specializations can be reset. You only get a certain amount of these actual containers to reset your specializations once you pick one. And again, it's all RNG. But if you have one that you don't any longer need, let's take an example like our deluxe storage crate. That's one we should definitely be getting rid of and reallocating. Since a lot of our other ones give us at least some sort of benefit, I have all my chests here that can all hold 64 resources apiece. And I also went ahead and built 4 more chests up here just in case I happen to need them. Since that's the case, I no longer actually need that specialization anymore. So if I want to go and reset one, I don't want to reset one of these other ones that give me even a small benefit. I want to reset this one because I just don't need it anymore. So the same thing applies. So in that case, if you reset this, you can confirm to reset it. Keep in mind, depending on the slot you select, since some of the lower level specialization spots only give you specific specialization options. So keep that in mind when resetting them, but you should definitely be resetting specializations that you don't need. Or other ones like the Stardust water pump that are extremely useless. You can reset that. Keep in mind, you can reset that. And now we got something like precious metal refining, which lets us make the gold and silver ingots. So that's one spot you can specifically reset to get something that's actually very useful. And this might be one of the best specializations in the entire game. So you can reallocate mimetic points and specialization points that way to make sure you're able to do exactly what you want to do at almost all times. Now, one big mistake is thinking you have enough energy link, because even if you have 100 or 200,000, you still probably don't have enough. And the reason I say this is because once we hit phase 6 of this season, obviously your Starchrom and all your blueprints and stuff carry over to any following season. So you want to make sure you maximize all of that you can get. Once we hit phase 6 of each season, essentially you get presented an option to convert energy link into Starchrom, which again you can use for unlocking all kinds of blueprints, powerful gear, etc. So you can get 4,000 Starchrom for free by trading in 390,000 energy link at the end of the season. So you want to make sure you're stacking on that and have at least 390,000 by the time that comes around, so you can get all of that Starchrom for free. Now, single-handedly, it is RNG, but the best way again to get energy link is using this precious metal refining technique. And I'll throw a link in the description to the energy link guide I showed that gives you exact details on how to do this. But if you have precious metal refining, then you can make gold and silver ingots, which sell for an extreme amount of energy link in a lot of the different shops in a lot of the different towns. If you do the specialization here, you can see for the chipsets, that's completely fine to do as well because they sell for 12,000 a piece. But if you do this too much, especially early on, you will run out of chipsets very easily and find yourself struggling to actually get the chipsets that you need to make a lot of the material around your base, since it's used in making everything. But if you have done the chipsets, one trick is to do the Monoliths of Thirst over and over and over again. Each time you beat that Shadow Hound boss, he will give you like 26 chipsets or so. So if you beat it like 6 times, you can get 150 chipsets and kind of be out of the weeds on that front. And one of the last big in-game mistakes is getting Starchrom correctly. Again, I have a video link in the description going over everything regarding that, so that way you can fully understand the details. But ideally, you're making sure you use your Stardust Resonant filter every single week, and it goes back to using those production facilities and killing bosses, etc., to get the most amount of the best version of these Eclipse Cortexes, especially the higher level ones. Now, the big mistake here is you want to make sure you're using your weekly purification limit regardless. Now, the level 1 Cortexes, you can see give you 70 Starchrom, and the level 3 give you 100. If you have 40 of the level 3 Cortexes, obviously you want to use the level 3 Cortexes in here. It gives you the most Starchrom. 40 of those will net you 4,000 Starchrom. But the most important thing is if you only have level 1s or level 2s, every week you need to make sure you're using all of these to max out how much Starchrom you can get. It doesn't matter what level they are. You want to make sure you're hitting this 40 mark and capping this out every week, so that way you can get your Starchrom for that week, and then by the time you go into the next week, you'll be able to get the Starchrom for that week as well. Because if you do 0 out of 40 this week and then go to save all of them for next week, you're just going to be getting the 40 maximum for next week. In this current week, you will have gotten 0, which will screw you, because again, if you do 40 level 1s, you'll be getting 2,800 Starchrom versus the 4,000 for level 3s. But again, 2,800 is way better than 0 because you're saving them up. It's saving them up to only use level 3s. And the same goes for combining these. It's a complete waste almost all of the time, except for some extreme players that play this game quite a lot. It's almost not worth it to even upgrade these to level 2s or 3s, because again, you're spending 3 level 1s to get a level 2. A level 2 gives you 85 Starchrom. A level 1 gives you 70, meaning you're trading 210 Starchrom for 85. So if you don't have 40 maximum cores that you're worried about, this is a complete waste of time and a complete waste of Starchrom, because you're going to have to go farm much more to get this stuff back. And overall, if you do that, you will be making sure to max out your Starchrom as much as humanly possible. The first is not focusing on acid, and you can do this very early, even well before the traditional endgame. However, once you start leveling up and getting closer to the end game, a lot of things in the end game will obviously require tungsten or aluminum ingots, which require you to make them with a ton of acid. Also, on top of the ammo essentially costing you acid, in order to calibrate your weapons actually cost tungsten ingots, which again cost a lot of acid on top of that. So you need to make sure you're stacked with tungsten ingots, as well as an infinite amount of acid, because you're never going to have enough. So the two best ways to 100% get loaded on acid are going to be this OP acid farm. So to get this passive acid farm going that I know you've been putting off and making it extremely easy on you, essentially we have 6 water pumps here. The way these work is if you put these in a body of water, you're going to get dirty water that then turns into this pure water that you can see here, which is drinkable. Now, however, there's 2 differences here. There's areas like this part of the map that are not really polluted, and then there's areas like this and other parts around certain like towns and settlements that are going to be polluted areas. What that means is if you see on my backpack, you can see we have pollution at 100 here, and you can see the bottom of my health bar, polluted zone, meaning my sanity has dropped pretty dramatically. Now, the important part of putting your base in a polluted zone for this is if your water pumps are in a body of water in a polluted zone, you'll be getting dirty water and you'll be getting impure acid. If you put them on land, however, once you cycle through this whole routine, which I'm going to show you in just a second, you will get polluted water specifically from it. Now, the big thing here is polluted water actually turns into impure acid, and then impure acid gets turned into acid passively, which means this farm can basically almost constantly run by itself and generate you tons of acid this way. So at first, once you enter a polluted zone, I would recommend putting your base into the water a little bit so that way your water pumps are in the water. Once you let that run for about a day, you will stack up so much pure water you will never need any more almost. So that's something to keep in mind. So do that for a day and generate as much pure water as you possibly can in these tanks. And then what we're going to do is move our base onto land, so that way our water pumps are now on the ground, giving us only polluted water this time, which will turn again into our impure acid. And the way we'll set this up, and I'll show you the wires in a minute, is we have to connect all of these water pumps to power the osmosis purifier. Now, what you'll need to do this in the memetics tree very quickly. First for logistics, you'll need all the way down to the reverse osmosis purifier, which can help purify impure acid into acid. You also need the power upgrades as much as possible, all the way down to advanced generators, so you can get the advanced biomass generator, which gives you essentially one of the biggest, easiest boosts for power. And then finally, you will need the brewing barrel, which again can be put down and actually turn impure acid into acid. Now, again, we have 3 water pumps over here on the left and 1 osmosis water purifier right here. As you can see, all 3 of these water pumps are hooked up to power, and all 3 of these on the left are feeding into this osmosis water purifier. The same goes for the ones on the right, going into the osmosis purifier on the right. Now, 3 water pumps in this area gives you enough to consistently max out and get polluted water so that you never run out. So if you have 2 sets of these being processed at a time, you're going to be getting, as you can see here, a ton of impure acid on this side, and additionally a ton of impure acid on this side as well, meaning you're doubling the impure acid that you can get. Now, here's where you want about 5 or 6 barrels at least. So you can see we have the pipes connecting over here to the osmosis water purifier. Then the 3 that are going in here, the osmosis water purifier goes into the storage water tank for storage of all of our goods. And the same again goes for this side. Now, one of the sides with the most pure water in it, you actually want to connect this to all of the individual barrels, so that way each barrel will continue to receive maximum pure water without you ever having to do anything. As you can see, all these barrels have pure water. They've gotten it all just passively through being hooked up to one of these water tanks, so feel free to always fill this one up with your pure water when you need to. Now, the impure acid will need to be moved manually, which is no real problem. When you get on for the day, once you have enough, you just drop it in the barrels and it will begin to process. It's a 10-to-1 ratio, so getting 1,000 impure acid will give you 100 acid for free. So we take that impure acid, we take the impure acid from this side as well. We have 2,000 impure acid here from letting this just simply run overnight. Next, since we have 5 brewing barrels, we'll split this up evenly. We have 2,000, which means we would do about 350 a piece. So we're going to drop 350 impure acid in there, and then we're going to do that for every single one of these. So basically, you can get 300 to 400 acid every day completely for free, and you can add more barrels as needed to make more acid. But again, you can get 300 to 400 to 500 acid for free every day once this setup is complete, just by coming into your water tank, grabbing your impure acids, and adding them to your brewing barrels. Now, on that note, one thing you do want to make sure is that you have a switch activated with all of this stuff on it, because this stuff takes up a lot of power, basically the entire power for your base in some cases. So put every single thing here on a switch, put your plants on that exact same switch, and then put your refrigerator on either that switch or the main power source. All the things in here that require power, like your electric furnaces, all of the securement silos, every single thing else besides your fridge, your plants, and that stuff that requires power, put on one switch. And then every single thing else, like your stove even, put on a separate switch. So that way, when you need to use your stove or something like that, or anything in here, you can simply turn on this switch and turn off the other one, and then use your stove. Once you're done using your stove, you can simply turn this switch off and turn the other one back on, especially when you get done for the day. So that way you only use that stuff up there when you need to, and this stuff is always processing in the background. Next is going to be farming blackfell, because the mob density in this area is just literally insane. And by the time you wrap all the way around, all the enemies pretty much respawn, meaning you can run it nonstop and get a maximum amount of acid. Now, one thing you do want to do is make sure you make this particular acid food. So the food we're looking for that's going to give us a bunch more acid is this preserved deviated chops. Now, in order to actually unlock this in your mimetics tab, you will need to have gotten the integrated stove and unlocked down to dishes level 2, where you can see you can create the preserved deviated chops there. Now, this requires peppercorn, some salt, and some deer meat. Now, for salt, you can go to the ocean, and if you go to the ocean, you just collect salt water, and then from there you can turn your salt water here. You can see it requires seawater. Turn your seawater into salt so you'll have plenty. Then you'll need peppercorn, and then you'll just need any regular deer meat, which is easy enough to find. Again, you can see here it uses to increase our acid gain by 50%. You can make a ton of these very easily, store them in the fridge, and use them every single time you're going to farm acid, because it's going to give you 50% more acid. So if you're farming it, you get a free 50% for a lot of time if you just make a couple of these pieces of food and eat them before you start farming. I'm telling you, it will give you a bunch more. Now, it takes a couple things. One of those things is going to be peppercorn. You can actually visit Blackfell, talk to Lacey, and once you shop with her, she will actually offer you peppercorn, so you can buy peppercorn for basically free, or you can buy the peppercorn seeds as well, so that you can grow peppercorn in your house. As you can see, once we start driving into Blackfell, you can use a sniper or you can use any other regular weapon, especially if you want to use a crossbow. And honestly, the quicker movement speed you have on your build, meaning the lighter your equipment is, the more enemies you're going to be able to get through very quickly. And if you have the food active, you could essentially be getting anywhere even up to 8 acid per enemy. And I've seen people get 500 acid this way in an hour. So if you're doing the passive acid farm on top of this, you will be getting in the thousands of acid just for a little bit of farming, which is honestly just outrageous. And again, what you could do and what I did in the beta is once you've unlocked some of these better crossbows, you could essentially upgrade it and run tungsten arrows so you can one-shot enemies every single time, and then run around with basically no clothes on almost. So that way you have like maximum movement speed. That way you can just run through, one-shot enemies, pick up your arrow, shoot the next enemy, and go on and on and on, and never have to use any ammo and move with extreme speed, and can let you farm acid at an extremely fast pace. That being said, if this helped you, drop a like, subscribe. Only a small percentage are subscribed, so make sure to do that down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.